Welcome to episode 058 of the Beacon broadcast. It's October 28th, 2024. Kodax is here, that's me, flying solo this week. Hopefully we'll see Ravenheart on episode 060, but for now, let me talk to you about some pickups I've got this week. First up, I have the physical release of Alan Wake 2. This game released last year, digital only. But the wait was kind of worth it because instead we got the sort of complete edition of Alan Wake 2, which they're calling the Deluxe Edition. This has the main game, all the patches for the base game, and the first DLC included on disc. The second DLC, the Lake House expansion, I believe, or the Night Springs expansion, just launched same day as the physical release. So that is being added in a patch to the game for the disc version. So unfortunately it's not 100% complete, but at least the base game and the first DLC are on disc. For PlayStation 5, that is. Now if you purchase the Xbox Series X, Series S version of the physical copy, unfortunately only a very small portion of the game is available on the disc, and you have to download the majority of the game in an update. So if you're an Xbox collector, something to be aware of, you're basically purchasing an installed disc, which is rather unfortunate. The second game I got this week was Romancing Saga 2, Revenge of the Seven. And we talked about this game, Ravenheart and I talked about this game earlier this year when it was formally announced. And this is a remake slash strong reimagining the original Romancing Saga 2, which released for the Super Famicom in Japan. Eventually, an expanded mobile version of the game was released worldwide in, I believe, 2011, and it also came to the PlayStation Vita. But this is the first time it's hitting a home console, I believe. No, I think I might be wrong there. Well, anyways, this reimagining is hitting all major consoles. I believe Switch, Xbox, and PlayStation 5, although I could be wrong about Xbox. Square Enix doesn't always publish their games there. And it is available on PC as well. I believe on Steam. So, I know that's the place most PC gamers prefer to buy their games. So on the back here it says, "Save your empire, defend your legacy. Defend your empire over successive generations, expand your realm, and defeat the vengeful 7 heroes one by one to save the world." It says there's an endless array of exciting story experiences, multiple playable protagonists, all eligible to inherit the throne, and highly strategic battle systems with innovative mechanics. So I think when we spoke about this game earlier this year, we mentioned how when it first released on the Super Famicom, it was considered like genre-defining masterpiece in terms of what you were able to do, all the various systems in the game, the inheritance system, the successor system, and so it just did some really neat things that they basically published like massive Bibles in terms of like gameplay guides on how to progress, how to do everything, how to see everything. And the Japanese collector's edition for this remake of the game actually includes a reprinting of the original manual for the Super Famicom game, which I think is pretty cool. So that's it for purchases. So what have I been playing? I have been playing, well, as I told you last week, I got my wisdom teeth removed. And that was an interesting ordeal, which I won't really talk about here. But I had a few days at home on my own with nothing to do. I'm kind of waiting for Dragon Age the Veilguard right now. So I decided that I would pick up a game I only briefly played a few months ago, back in July when it released. And that's from the creators of Genshin Impact and Honkai Star Rail. It's their newest game, Zenless Zone Zero. Henceforth, I'll be referring to the game as ZZZ. That's typically how they abbreviate it, and it's just a lot less to say than Zenless Zone Zero. Okay, so ZZZ is a character action game, somewhat in the vein of like, maybe not quite Bayonetta or Devil May Cry, but it has more in common with those kinds of games, having a really strict dodge and parry system. And while being very like flashy with its animations and attacks and things like that. It is set, I've talked about it briefly before, but it is like a modern but semi-futuristic urban fantasy, is how I would probably best describe it. It takes place in sort of a dystopian world where they have these things called hollows have appeared and basically destroy everything within the hollow. So people have like made new cities and towns around, the outside of these hollows, but some of these hollows are practically like incorporated on the inside of some towns. Long story short, the main character doesn't actually go into these hollows. They're sort of like an advisor from the outside, and you deal with I forget, I think they're called agents. Yeah, so there's the agents that go and do jobs inside the hollow, to find people, retrieve things. And anyways, like I said, the gameplay is very action packed, and it's really kind of clicking with me. I'm not always super good at these action kind of parrying and dodging games, but I am having a lot of fun with it. It's not as simple as just like, press the button at the right time. I mean, it actually is, but another cool thing that they incorporate is the character switching component. So when you go on these missions, you send in 3 agents. And of course, just like Genshin Impact and Honkai Star Rail, there's some free characters that you get as you start the game, but then if you want more, you have to use the currency that you earn in-game or can purchase with real money to effectively pull for more characters, like one of those vending machines where you put in the money and a random little object comes out and you never know what it's going to be till it's there. I've been really fortunate with all the free currency. I've gotten 2 of the like high-end operators or agents or whatever they're called, and I've put together a decent team so far, and I've been able to tackle the overwhelming majority of the content that the game has thrown at me so far. Compared to Genshin and Honkai Star Rail, it's definitely a breath of fresh air in terms of gameplay and the setting, the music. I'm enjoying it quite a bit, and I know I said back then months ago that I probably wasn't going to be playing Zenless Zone Zero, or that I wouldn't be playing Zenless Zone Zero, or ZZZ, but I think I'm kind of hooked to the gameplay. It's pretty good. I will say, though, I'm almost caught up with all the major story content that the game has offered so far, so I guess that's good for in terms of, like, I didn't really get too far behind. But yeah, that's where I'm at with Zenless Zone Zero. Really enjoying the gameplay, having a good time with it, and I'm looking forward to sticking around. I am going to commit to not, investing any money into the game. So we'll just kind of I'll take whatever the game gives me. I'm not going to fight with it and, try to really get a character, just whatever I can get for free from the game. Just play through the story, enjoy that. I'm not going to worry about any of the end game, ultra challenging, difficult stuff that the game offers. Okay, so I think it was last week I told you guys about the Nintendo playtest program that I qualified for. Well, it turns out there was an agreement that I had to, not really sign, but just agree to, that I wouldn't talk about it. So I'm not going to talk about it because it would be kind of stupid of me to do that publicly. But I will say, if you're interested to know what it was, or is, I can't remember if it's ending or about to end, it's very strange and weird and kind of wonderful. And I'm very curious to see how they launch this, market it, and develop it going forward. But yeah, you can Google it and go to YouTube. I think there's videos and stuff out there. And you can kind of be a little flabbergasted the way I was playing it. But I will say, I think it's got some potential. and I'm excited to see how they develop it. Maybe there'll be a time where I'll be allowed to talk about it a little more, but for now, that's all I can really say. Okay, what am I looking forward to? Well, first of all, Dragon Age: The Veilguard comes out later this week. I have my copy pre-ordered from Target, but unfortunately, Target rarely gets me games on release day, so I'm suspecting that I'll be waiting until the middle of next week before I start my playthrough. So fortunately, while I still have Zenless Zone Zero going on, the Monster Hunter Wilds beta begins tonight if you're a PlayStation Plus member, and that's tonight as in October 28th, the day I'm recording this podcast. So if you're hearing this afterwards and you're a PlayStation Plus member and you want to check out the Monster Hunter Wilds beta, that has begun. I believe it goes for the next 2 weeks. Starting next week, the pre-order or the beta opens up to other consoles, non-PlayStation Plus members, and PC as well. So I will report more back on that next week. One thing I'm excited about is that it does have the character creator, which in Monster Hunter are traditionally pretty extensive with a lot of customization options. And if you do create a character during the beta, not only will you get some cool stuff to like carry over into the full game, like some cosmetic stuff and like a little item pack that helps you start your journey as a monster hunter, but it will also let you import the character that you created, saving you a bunch of time when the game releases. So I think I'll probably spend more time with the character creator than I normally do, because a lot of times when a new Monster Hunter game comes out, I kind of just hit random a few times until I find a character that, looks good enough for my taste, and then I just jump into the game. So this way, at least I'll be able to really fine-tune it ahead of the launch and just jump into the game immediately. So I think that's a really neat perk of doing a demo/beta like this. Alright, now we're going to jump into the news. I've got 3 relatively short stories for you this week, but I think they're important, and I want to talk about them with you, especially the last story. Very important story. Okay, so for this first story, French media outlet Origami reports that the developers of Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown are being broken up and sent to work on different projects after the side-scrolling adventure game failed to meet sales expectations. This is just another piece of bad news for Ubisoft and its teams in a year of already bad news for the company. The silver lining here is that there are no layoffs happening, so that's always good, especially with Ubisoft. They're pretty good about never really having layoffs. They always are able to move people from one team to the next, and this is no exception here. The team reportedly pitched and fought for the chance to start work on a sequel to Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, but after the current expansion that had come out just a few weeks ago, The Mask of Darkness, Ubisoft basically told them, no, sorry, not happening. In fact, Ubisoft apparently decided months ago that they would not be continuing work on a sequel. So for those of you that don't know, Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown is a classic side-scrolling Prince of Persia game. It does not have any 3D exploration or environmental. It's purely a 2D go left experience. But by all accounts, a very, very good game, scored very highly, and only released just in January of this year. Now that the expansion is released, only a small team remained to work on porting the game to other platforms, such as Mac, before the team is just entirely disbanded. Ubisoft actually commented on this report, saying that the developers will be moved to teams working on a remake of Rayman, Beyond Good and Evil 2, which has been in development hell for the last decade, and the next Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon game. When commenting directly on the future of the Prince of Persia series, Ubisoft said, "We know players have a love for this brand, and Ubisoft is excited to bring more Prince of Persia experiences in the future." Now, we do know that they are working on a Prince of Persia Sands of Time remake that has also been kind of in development hell for the last 5 years. It was originally in development at a Indian Ubisoft subsidiary or studio, and apparently it was struggling to meet expectations, so the project wasn't moved entirely to a different Ubisoft studio where it's kind of being rebooted. Now, there's kind of another little story buried here in this story, and that's that Ubisoft basically confirmed that they're working on a remake of Rayman, the original side-scrolling Ubisoft platformer that kind of kickstarted a huge, basically kickstarted Ubisoft entirely. So Rayman, for those of you who never played a Rayman game, like a classic PlayStation 1, maybe maybe it was on Dreamcast or Saturn as well, and I believe PC, platforming game. Really great series. The first 3 are incredible, and then I highly recommend the 2 that they did on PlayStation 3, Wii, Xbox 360, and I believe the Vita also got them as well, and their names are escaping me right now, but they're the 2 most recent Rayman games on console. So personally, that's pretty exciting to me. Apparently, Rayman series creator, Michel Ancel, is apparently working on the game in an advisory capacity. Now, Michel exited the game, or exited Ubisoft, I should say, 3 or 4 years ago when they were having, or maybe it was just 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, when Ubisoft was having some fallout due to like their toxic workplace accusations that were going around. Now, so a lot of people are apparently concerned, including team members on the Rayman game, that he is back to being in the studio and working with the teams after kind of a tragic exit. He basically left of his own accord because he knew that he was in trouble, but I guess they felt that enough time had cooled, maybe enough people had left Ubisoft that he could just kind of worm his way back in. Now, I don't know what happened. I wasn't there. I know that he's a gifted creator, a game creator, but I don't know if he actually did do a lot of really toxic things. That's probably not great to have him back in the studio. It might lead to more trouble for Ubisoft down the line, but hopefully things can be better this time. Okay, so a report out of Game Developer, formerly known as Gamasutra might be what it's called, suggests that VR has stagnated or is in decline. VR game development has stagnated or is in decline according to a survey sent out to members of its Game Developer Collective. Each month, Game Developer, the website, the outlet, sends out a survey to their collective of game studios and developers for their thoughts on different trends in the industry. And this month, the results are staggering, but not entirely surprising for those of us who have been paying attention. Excitement around VR has largely faded. Just this last week, Minecraft announced that they would be sunsetting the ability to play Minecraft in VR in 2025. PlayStation VR 2 came out last year and did not do so well by sales estimations, and Sony isn't even, as far as we're aware, funding any new VR developed games. Sure, this year we have had other new devices like the insanely expensive Apple Vision Pro or the more affordable MetaQuest 3S, but game developers aren't really optimistic about the prospect of VR any longer. When asked the question, how would you characterize the overall state of the VR games market at present, 1% of developers said it was growing strongly. 23% said it was growing modestly. 38% said it was stagnating. 18% said it was declining. And 19% said they didn't know. So at least they're honest. But that's over 50% of developers think that VR is in trouble. Only 24%, let's round it up to a quarter, 25% of game developers think that VR is in a decent to good place. When asked, over what time frame could you see your company moving into VR game development, 3% said within the next 12 months, 4% said within 12 to 24 months, 6% said within 2 to 5 years, 13% said more than 5 years from now, 53% said never, and 21% said don't know. So again, we're looking at about a quarter of people thinking it's possible that VR, might be something their studio does in the future. 53% said, no way, Jose. And 21% were honest and said, don't know. So again, I do find it interesting that the highest number of people who said they might move into it into the future were the people saying 5 years from now. I do think that's maybe worth kind of touching on a little bit. I do wonder if those people or those studios just still don't think that VR is like really totally there yet. Maybe they still believe that it really is like the future of gaming, but they think it's, years off from now. Like they'll probably be old and dying, before we get to, what is it, Ready Player One style, where we're in like haptic suits and we have VR motion tracking pad stuff beneath our feet. To me, this is pretty damning as far as VR ever going truly mainstream. A decade ago, people were excited about the prospect of VR, and now people are seemingly indifferent to it. Do you remember all those Samsung commercials where they're like, all you gotta do is put your phone into this headset and wow, bam, you have VR. Like everybody was getting these junky little VR headsets or these little phone things. Like everyone was selling some kind of VR phone holder. And, I never got into it. I remember even Google tried to do it with their Pixel phones. I think it only supported it for like one generation of Pixel devices before they just scrapped it altogether. I don't think it's entirely doom and gloom for VR. Clearly, there is enough support from VR enthusiasts for companies to continue to create and invest in new headsets, advancements, applications, and games, but it's clear to me that the VR revolution has still yet to materialize. Alright gamers, it's time to fuel up. Mountain Dew, Doritos, Rockstar, and Xbox are teaming up for the return of epic gaming rewards. Their words, not mine. Beginning on November 4th and ending on January 31st, specially marked cans, bottles, and bags of everyone's favorite carcinogenic junk food will contain codes redeemable at DoritosDoRockstar.com for various amounts of points. Points can then be spent on in-game items such as Mountain Dew-themed Ericsson S64 Air Crane Helicopter for Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, various cosmetic items for Diablo 4, World of Warcraft, and The Elder Scrolls Online. Finger-licking Dorito dust gamers can also redeem points on Xbox Game Pass Ultimate trial subscriptions. New users only, though. There will also be physical rewards such as consoles, keyboards, and Twitch gift cards up for grabs too. Mountain Dew, what's the website again? DoritosDoRockstar.com describes these physical items as being available in this vault that will open up periodically, like every 3 days. And I guess it'll just be first come, first serve to the items in the vault. I imagine you'll need quite a lot of points to get like, a whole console or something like that. But this isn't just any typical brand collaboration. For this special occasion, Mountain Dew is breaking open the vault for the return of Game Fuel. Both citrus cherry and citrus blackberry flavors will return to store shelves so gamers can get their daily intake of Red 40, Yellow 6, and Blue 1. But don't let me rain on your parade if this is exciting to you. I'll be sitting on the sidelines with my sparkling water, watching in envy as you get those sweet cosmetic rewards. You do you. End transmission.